Yes, sir. Good morning. Being 9 a.m., I'll call to order the McHenry County Board Committee of the Whole meeting of April 10th, 2025, and Ms. Greeno will lead us in the pledge this morning.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Kathy, could you call the roll, please?
Pamela Altoff. Here. Carolyn Campbell. Here. John Collins. Here. Joseph Gottemoller. Terry Greeno. Here. Eric Hendricks. Carl Kaminsky.
Present.
James Kearns.
Here.
Dina Krager. Here. Matthew Kunkel.
Here.
Brian Sager. Michael Shorten.
Here.
Michael Scala.
Present.
Larry Smith.
Here.
Patrick Sullivan.
Here.
Paul Thomas.
Here.
Gloria Van Hoff.
Present.
Tracy Von Bergen. Here. Chairman Bueller.
Here. I'll entertain a motion to allow Mr. Smith to attend remotely. Mr. Gottemoller makes the motion. Ms. Altoff seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. Welcome, Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
Good morning. I have a handful of items to share with you before we begin reviewing the agenda for next Tuesday's voting meeting. I'll start off this morning by thanking McHenry County Clerk Joe Theriault, his staff, and the county's election judges for running an efficient election on April 1st. Congratulations to the winners and to everyone who stepped up to run for our city councils, school boards, township boards, and other units of local government. Congratulations are also in order for Jackie Berggren and our friends at Naturally McHenry County, who at the end of March relocated from Huntley to a new and beautiful home in the old Courthouse Center in Woodstock. The move puts our premier tourism and visitors organization in the historic Woodstock Square in the heart of McHenry County. And both the square and Courthouse Center perfectly complement Naturally McHenry County's mission. Please stop by, as I have. It's a beautiful facility, and say hello if you haven't already. They're in Unit 1D of the courthouse, which is on the northwest corner of the square at 101 North Johnston Street. On Monday, work began to replace the parking lot and access road here at the County Administration Building. Work will be done in phases to minimize disruption to visitors and employees and should be completed by mid-August, weather permitting. Thank you to our visitors, employees, and members of this county board for their patience and understanding. County board members and employees should keep an eye on their email for weekly updates from our facilities management department as work progresses. And I'll close my remarks this morning with 3 notes for county board members. On Wednesday, April 23rd, we will be meeting starting at 8:30 a.m. at the Old Courthouse Center for our strategic plan workshop. This is a very important gathering where we will be crafting the next strategic plan to set our goals and guide our policy decisions for the next 4 years. So it's very important that everyone attend. County board members and other countywide elected officials also have until Thursday, May 1st to file their statements of economic interest with the county clerk's office. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to the county clerk's office to ask. At its last meeting, the Finance and Audit Committee did not pass a proposed loan agreement with the City of Marengo. However, committee members graciously offered suggestions for the agreement's improvement. On your desks, you will find a modified version of the loan agreement that incorporates the Finance and Audit Committee's suggestions. While this modified loan agreement is not on today's Committee of the Whole agenda, it will be placed on Tuesday evening's agenda under new and unfinished business, so feel free to discuss this today at today's meeting. And that concludes my remarks. Do any members have comments today? Seeing none, do we have any public comments? No public comment. Under reports and presentations today, we have Chief County Assessment Officer Alejandro Benitez to talk to us a little bit about the property tax assessment process.
Just familiarizing myself with the apparatus here. Bear with me. It's queued up, right? It should start moving? Yep, okay, perfect. Okay, all right, everything seems to be working. Morning, everyone. My name is Alex Benitez, Alejandro Benitez, formally. Alex works, but I'm Chief County Assessment Officer, Supervisor of Assessments, and thank you for having me here today. I like doing this periodically only because it kind of reinforces what we do and what we're striving for in assessments. Overall, it's better if we all kind of know what we're striving for and the goals for the supervisor of assessments and the board of review and the township assessors, what we're all really striving for at the end, and these presentations absolutely help us do that. So thank you for having me. Now, some of you have seen this material before, all right? Some of you are new. I changed things up a little bit because I've realized that people would go to the website, or they would suggest going to the website or the YouTube channel to see a presentation that's about 40 minutes long. I bet some of those got started and they stopped pretty quickly. I mean, if you want to see it, you love this stuff, you're going to listen for the whole thing. I try to captivate you long enough to kind of keep you for the whole thing, but at the same time, we're all human, right? We all got things to do. So what I've done with this next version is to kind of reduce it into little vignettes, all right? So my hope is to kind of create smaller versions of presentations answering questions so that we could put those on our frequently asked questions. Or if somebody has a specific question as to what equalization is, they can go hit that button and get the 3 or 4 minute explanation that they need. So that's my goal with this. So you're going to see some redundancy in some of these slides, but what I've realized that I can't do this without an audience. When I start presenting to myself, I can't tell you how often I have to restart. How many of you have left, tried to leave voicemail messages or on your phone for a callback, and you have to do it 3 or 4 times because you're just not in rhythm, right? So I'm hoping that this gives me the rhythm that I need, while at the same time providing you the information and everyone the information that they need, all right? So 2 things that are essential to the discussion of assessments. And I want to talk about this. Okay, so there's delay. I got to note that. All right. What we're looking for in assessments when we do this is fairness. We want to be fair in the distribution of the property tax burden. That is item number 1, and that's really important to everyone that gets into this, all right? We want to be fair, all right? 2, I need people to understand that property taxes are not like income taxes. All right, so in this first section, I'm really just going to give you some things that you're going to need to know moving forward, all right? But this is the crux of a lot of what I talk about, and these are the 2 main things, all right? It's going to jump to when it registers. Okay, so let's talk about fair. All right, fair. Honorable, equitable, fair-minded, open-minded, honest, to certain standards, all right? That's what the definition of fair is, and that's one of the things that we're striving for, all right? Let's talk about that a little bit more because, and I'm going to reference something that I think a lot of the board members have, done over the years. Come on. All right. Yeah, it's throwing me for a loop, sorry. And now it's gone. All right. How many people are familiar with this game? All right, it's another real estate game, right? Although I hesitate to call what we do a game, but this is a real estate thing that we're all familiar with, and there's rules. Growing up, we would, play this game, and we would play it as fairly as possible in our house. And then we'd go to somebody else's house and they'd have a slightly different set of rules, right? So every jurisdiction has these basic ways of playing this game, and there might be some slight modifications that are core to those rules, all right? All those different variations, and there's only 8 pages of rules technically, all right? How many different iterations do you think this tax code could have? All right, there are 386 pages. All right, so anyone can dive into this and actually start picking it apart, looking for rules that benefit them, that might be out of context. But understand that at the core, this is what we're trying to execute, and this is what we are striving for in terms of the fairness. This is the standards that we're setting to, all right? The reason I said in McHenry County to begin with is because if you go to a different county, they might view some of these rules a little differently. They might do things a little differently. Heck, you might even call your township assessor and get a different answer than what I give, a slightly different perspective, all right? So understand that I'm giving you the way I explained this. In general, I am following the Illinois Constitution to the best of my ability, and the corresponding tax code, and I'm simply trying to explain assessments in a way that seems to have resonated in my 15 years here, all right? So this works. People tend to get it and understand, oh, I understand, okay? So when I say the difference, there's a difference between property taxes and income taxes, what is that big difference? Well, if you've seen my presentation before, you'll know that the answer is very simple. Well, with income taxes, the government checks your work. They come up with the code. Software companies, people come up with a way of working on it. You work it, you submit it, they audit it, right? They get a chance to look at it. How many of you breathe a huge sigh of relief when it says, hey, they accepted that return, right? Well, with property taxes, it's all opposite. It's reversed. The legislature comes up with the rules, with the code, and then we, the government, are the one that ends up doing the work. And you, the individual, the property owner, you're the one that gets a chance to audit the work that we do, all right? And that's the key difference. And when you put it in that perspective, it should be empowering, all right? Some people say, you're the government, you should be right every time. It'd be great, but again, shouldn't you have the ability to check what we're doing? Yeah, so this whole system is designed with that in mind. All right, you audit the government's work. Now, some people don't like that word. It's a bit strong, but when you get to it, what else is a check? An audit, right? So if you are going to be auditing the work that we do, you really need to understand how, right? Well, what should every homeowner know? They should know approximately the value of their house, right? And if you take a third of that or 33 1/3 of that value, it should at least give you some indication as to how correct we are, right? So you take 33 1/3 of the market value. All right, that's what I thought was going to happen. All right, we also, when we do this, we send out a breakdown of land and buildings. We send out, if you have farmland, we break down the farmland and the farm buildings, and then we publish those changes, and then we even send out notices. So we do that all so that you have that ability. You're empowered to now review it and take a look at it and take action if needed, all right? That's important, all right? So when we talk about, as we move through this presentation, understand, we're trying to be fair, and this whole system is designed for this very audit action, okay? All right, so that's the end of that little subset, all right? Property taxes, the correlation to tax rate and market value. In order to really understand assessments, I take it to the core example that we all can really relate to, and it's dinner with some friends, all right? Because when you break it down, that is the exact same thing that's happening on a bigger scale, all right? So let's do this. Yeah, that's what I thought. All right. I don't think we're going to use this one live. I think I'm going to probably need to redo it. All right. There's 5 of us at dinner. We all order the same special, same thing, identical. The total, including the tip, is $100. How much do we each pay? $20, right? How'd you do that so fast? Anyone want to give an answer? You divide it by 5, right? You're saying it, you're thinking it, what? Right? So you divide it by 5. What if I said that there was a slightly more descriptive answer, a slightly better answer? About 100 times 1/5. When you just divide by 5, you do something instinctively. You do it without even thinking about it, and that's you apply an assessment of 1 to each of these meals. Come on. You
You apply a value of 1 to each of these meals. How do I know you applied a value of 1? Because you said fifth. You divide by 5, right? That equals 1/5 of the total. Total of 100 for a value of $20, right? It's something we do instinctively. This is all going to correlate to how property taxes generally are. All right? Now, I'm going to show you something. We're going to come back to this. This is going to make some of you uncomfortable seeing it like this. But let's remember this equation. 100 times 1/5 equals 20, because we're going to come back to it. All right? And like I said, what we're talking about when it comes to the discussion of assessments is fairness. That's what we're striving for, and that they're not the same as income taxes, right? This is your chance to audit our work, so there's got to be some built-ins to make that happen, right? All right. Like I mentioned earlier in a different slide, that 33 1/3 is really important because that's your key. All right. Let's talk about market value since 91. All right. That green line is the market value in whole since 91. That's the pattern we should all be familiar with. The orange line that popped up below that is 1/3. It's exactly 1/3. All right. Now, in statistics, or if you're trending, or if you really want to know what's happening in something, you don't want to be susceptible to sudden increases and decreases, right? You want to be able to understand what's really happening. And so what's a tool that's available to you when you're doing that? Averaging the prior 3 years, right? That's what a lot of statistics and mathematicians do in order to kind of really hone in on what some trends are, all right? So that's what this third line is. That is averaging the prior 3 years of what's happening. All right, let's zoom in on the last quarter of this, and let's take a look at this. Based on what I've told you, which one do you think had more appeals? 2019 or 2024? Just looking at the difference between them, well, 2019 had almost 6,000 appeals, 5,600, and in the last year, we only had 2,100 appeals, all right? That's how many complaints we've gotten. All right? Why? Start asking yourself why that is. And you might actually already see the answer and where I'm going with this. All right? But understand that, again, it's all tied to the market for a reason. All right? So why the connection to the market? It really alerts you to a possible problem. All right? We have to stay in line. It's a litmus test. It's a benchmark. And for, we didn't do any coal mining back in the day, but for those of you that were coal miners, it's the canary in the coal mine, right? It tells you that there could be a problem, all right? That's the point of tying it to the market so that you can have that ability, all right? So let's go back to the equation. That 100 times 1/5 equals 20. Well, let's actually start applying it to where it belongs. That $100 restaurant bill, what actually is it? Well, that's a levy. Come on, could it be the battery?
I think if you point it at Alex, it seems to work best.
All right. So that restaurant bill is the levy amount. For those people that don't know what a levy amount is, that is simply your taxing districts, your schools, your fire department, your police department. They need a certain amount of money from the people they serve in order to kind of operate. That's what a levy is, all right? That 1 is exactly what we talked about. It's an assessment. It's a value that we put on there. That 5 is the total of those assessments. And that restaurant bill of $20, what actually is it? That's actually the tax bill. That's how that corresponds. Many of you probably haven't seen it like this. You're uncomfortable seeing it like this. Why? Because it's not how it's presented to you. What if I move the total assessment underneath the levy? What's that give you? Does that make you feel a little better? How about now? That levy be divided by the total of assessment. That base in that district gives you the tax rate. That tax rate times your assessment will now give you your tax bill. So that's how that works. The reason I like using it this way, quite simply, is because when it comes to assessments, that's my box, that's our box, that box belongs to township assessors, our office here at the county, and the Board of Review, the state at PTAB, all right? That's our box. We focus on the assessments. If it's in that box, we can work with it. We can fix it if there's a problem, all right? If it's outside that box, that's outside our purview. It takes us almost a year and a half to get through one cycle. We just finished up 2024. Today, we just got a word from the state that we got a factor of 1, which is great. It's exactly what we want for state, for county equalization. So we just got that today, and that's 2024. Now the clerk can do what they need to do and do the extension, all right? Focus on that. We have zero interest in the levies. Again, we got our hands full just with what we've got in our assessments, all right? If your assessment is correct and it's based off of market and or we have been consistent and fair with your assessment, do we in this department really have any control over the tax bill? We really don't, which is why we try to focus on what we can work on, all right? And a lot of people think we are the tax people. I mean, we control 2/3 of that equation, right? So yeah, I get it. We are happy to answer those questions, but we just want to make more people aware as to what's happening and what we can control and why we keep focusing in on that specific aspect of the tax bill, all right? That's why we do this. That's why we correlate things to the market, okay? So understanding equalization, why it's important, its impact, and the tax cap. All right, this next section is going to answer a couple things for you. All right, equalization is that pesky 5%, 10%, 11% that you may see on your assessment notices when they went out last year. Right, a lot of people open it up, probably freaked out, thinking we're raising taxes that much. A lot of you may have fielded those calls. Okay.
You can have Dan advance the slide.
I'm sorry.
Ask
Okay,
Dan.
all right. So go ahead and advance. Good. All right, one more time. Advance the slide. So in order to kind of understand this whole thing, let's go back to dinner. Actually, I'm going to wait.
We're gonna do some batteries here.
Well, I'm glad. I practiced this with my staff yesterday and the day before, and they kept wanting to ask questions, interrupt me. I think that was perfect training for this, all right? To kind of get me ready and kind of keep me on my toes. All right, let's see if this works. I hope so. Cross our fingers. All right. So let's go back to the restaurant bill in order to kind of explain this concept of equalization. All right, 100 times 1/5 equals 20. All right. First off, what is an assessment? An assessment is applying a number to a specific situation, all right? And we all do it. You did it with the restaurant bill when you applied a value of 1 to everything, but you could do it to everything. Here you are, you can take a look and you're starting to evaluate these dogs. You're using your own scale, but you're evaluating them, you're assessing them. Now I'm gonna start getting a little bit more specific. Let's talk about Louie. All right, Louie's our probation dog, so he works court services. He's an awesome dog. Louie, on a scale of 1 to 10 of awesomeness, 10 being the best, what could you rank Louie at? All right, everyone jumps at 10 o'clock. 10, absolutely. He's a great dog. He's an awesome dog. I love Louie, but you might not feel that way. There might be somebody that feels like he's an 8. Well, how about 9? Does 9 make sense? All right, let's go with 9 because that's how I got the slides situated. Let's give him a ranking of 9 of awesomeness. All right, now I'm going to change the scale. How about on a scale of 1 to 20? Well, I'm not trying to fool you. I doubled the scale. Should stay consistent. Should be 18, right? How about on a scale of 1 to 100? 90, right? Scale a factor of 10, scale a factor of 10. That makes sense, right? Have I changed the essence of the assessment? No, not at all, right? Nobody here is mad, right? You're all good with that, right? Because you see the scale, you see what's happening. Well, I just explained equalization. That's what we're doing. Every year we have to adjust to that market, all right? And all we're doing is adjusting to the scale. We are not collecting any extra taxes with that factor. It is just us trying to keep pace with that market, all right? Let's go back to this section, to this slide. Remember back 2019 and 2024? All right. 2019 had a 5% factor. 2024 had 10.5% factors, all right? With that data information, and with which one do you think may have seen the higher number of appeals and complaints? Well, if you judged it just based on the 5%, you might say the 5%, but believe it or not, that's when we had more complaints. That 10.5% yielded less complaints. Why? Because that gap is so much different, all right? That market started to take off, and all we're trying to do is keep pace with that line, those numbers based off 3-year median averages. Again, you lose that ability to really analyze what's happening with your assessment if we don't keep that more in line. And again, tax code is tax code. We can't increase it more in order to kind of give that. So we have to stay in line, and this is what we're tracking, okay? So what's the relative effect, and why do we equalize? And it's also going to introduce you to the base concept of fairness for this. All right, let's take a look at that 1/5. Now, the 5 of you at dinner, do you all always order a special? No, you might be saying, no, I always have to customize it because I'm not really a special kind of person, right? I'll either get an extra side or get an extra drink, or you actually are a health nut and you only just like a salad and water. So that special assessment doesn't quite work for you, right? Well, let's change that lower scale. I'm just changing that lower scale to 15, 3 times, right? What do I need to do to that assessment of 1? I need to change that to 3. Is anyone mad that I just did that? You're looking over my shoulder, I just increased your assessment 200%. Are you mad? No. Bill's still $20, right? But what that allows us to do is that friend that customized their meal with an extra drink because it's a hard week or because the mouse wasn't working, we could change that to a factor of 4, right? What are they paying? $26. That friend that always gets a salad and water because they're healthy and you hate them, how much are they paying? $13.33. Is this fair? Okay, it's not exact, right? Everyone can agree it's not exact. Everyone's not paying exactly what they're supposed to. But is this fair? Is this a fair way of approaching it? It is, right? The system is designed to be fair without being exact. All right? We can't separate your tax bills based off of the services you take. All right? That's not possible in this thing. And so that concept of fairness is the very, very same thing as you sharing responsibility for the meal that you just had. All right? So that's the level of fairness that we're looking for. Okay? So why did, Alex, everything you're telling me saying that, assessments really don't affect anything. Why did tax bills still go up? All right, well, here's where we talk about the CPI and the tax cap, all right? So what other part of the equation is there in order to come up with a bill? All right, that $100, right? Can that change year over year? Yeah, it can, by 5% or the amount of CPI, whichever one is lower. So when that levy changes year to year, that is partially responsible for those increases. All right. Now, anyone in a taxing district, the schools that might be watching it, they're like, "That's not true, Alex. You're lying." I'm not. I'm showing you the patterns in general. All right. We are in assessments responsible because there's a lot of math. These are big numbers. So assessments is responsible for some of that when it comes to the tax bills. But understand what's at play. And in other slides, I'm going to talk about where and what and how we're responsible for those. All right. But just understand that those increases are associated to those 3 functions. Okay? Changing the levy is not the only reason for an increase. The assessment can contribute to it. There's more details in other slides. All right, I really want to get that out there because somebody can essentially, pounce on me for that. All right, so let's talk about real numbers, real data. All right, so there's 2 graphs here. All right, this lower one is where assessments are. The blue is where assessments are in general. All right. The orange are 3 years worth of sales. This is real data in a real township, okay? When I tell people, all right, what is the goal? It's to be at 33 1/3. So when we equalize, the idea should be that we're hitting our target, okay? 33 and a third is the target that we're shooting for. What does that look like once we equalize? What do you expect to happen when it equalizes? Bam. Okay, these are real numbers in a real township. And the assessment increased almost 13%, 12.68%. So we hit our target, all right? And when we get a factor of 1, that means we have done that consistently throughout the county, all right? So we are simply hitting that target. What that does with analysis, especially in an appreciating market, is guess what? Let's say this is 3 years. Let's say we take away years 2 and 3. All right, we're only looking at the most current sales. What do you think that orange graph is going to look like? Okay, you're going to see that values are a little bit higher than that. All right, so there's some cushion in there. All right, so the math works. The system works. It's doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's designed for appreciating markets. There are things in place for when it does depreciate or if things go the other way. All right, but understand that by us trying to hit that 3-year median average, we're trying to be conservative, and then you're still tied to the market so that you can do what? Audit the work that we do. Uh-oh. I pressed the wrong button. Yeah, we're definitely not going live with this one. There we go. All right, so that's the end of that section. Okay, does that all make sense? All right, so let's talk about assessment math, year over year. Probably taking a little longer, but I apologize. But hopefully you're finding it interesting enough. All right, assessments, the assessment math, year over year, extension in the tax bill. All right, that's what I'm going to be talking about in this next section. All right, for those of you that don't like math, understand I've situated the math in a way that you're going to identify the pattern. Either you love the math, or you can identify the pattern. So understand that that's what we're going to be doing in these next couple slides, all right? So let's say year to year, the levy stays the same, but assessments increase 11.4%, all right? Now, everyone's individual assessment's going to go up 11.4%, so that means the total of those assessments is going to go up 11.4%, right? All right. What's the tax bill going to do? Likely to stay the same, or really close to the same, right? All right, but that's not what really happens. And here's where I'm going to get into some of that nuance. Some buildings, some properties cannot absorb an 11.4%. Those property owners appeal, all right? Some are successful. They get reductions. So what does that happen? Your individual assessment might go up 11.4%, but that total assessment actually drops a little bit, all right? So when that denominator, that total base drops a little bit, what does that do to the tax bill? It causes an increase, all right? In this example, I think it's 0.09%, all right? So that's kind of where we're responsible for some of those increases, all right? Now, there are other ones that are going to come up in other videos, not today, but again, today we're doing Assessments 101, all right? There are more complicated things that I do want to address eventually. All right, so let's go to the next one. All right, let's assume that this board can grant an assessment holiday. Let's say I had the power to say, all right, I want an easy year this year. I'm not going to equalize anyone. All right, 0. All right. What does that look like? No, everyone's assessments goes up 0. Everyone's happy, right? At least the public might be, you might be at first, until all of a sudden you start to realize, hey, we're celebrating 0% increase. All right, but total assessments go up 0, so there's really no change in that. But the CPI allows the levy to go up 3.4%, which is what it was for this year, all right? What can happen to the tax bill? That can also go up 3%. So your assessment holiday yielded no help, right? Because that's not what the system's designed to do. It's not helping. It's not designed to do that. All right, so let's talk about a couple more of these, not too many. Neighbor 1, he's in McHenry County, and they're able to go up 3.4%. All right, the assessment goes up 11.4%. We talked about a second ago how there's going to be some assessment loss. All right, so 11.4%. So how much can the total tax bill go up? 3.49%, where the 3.4 is part of the CPI or the levy increase, and that 9/100% is because of the assessment, right? Does that make sense? Let's talk about neighbor 2. Neighbor 2 sees the same levy increase, and initially has the same assessment increase. But guess what? They found a mistake in their assessment. They found that they were overvalued for some reason. Maybe they just recently purchased it and that sale price was less than where we had it assessed at. They file an appeal. So they still get an increase over the prior year, 4% increase, all right? So they contribute to a little bit of that loss at the 11.4%, right? What's going to happen to the tax bill? Well, believe it or not, with that discrepancy between the 4% and what it was originally at 11.4%, there actually might see a bit of a decrease, all right? So that's how our assessments kind of work with the tax bill, all right? That's what's happening. That discrepancy in the assessed value was able to offset that levy amount increase. All right, so let's talk about some real numbers. Now, I have been using 3.4%, all right, because that was technically what's on the books for the CPI. I think for the county, we actually took less than that. So great job, county. Great job, guys. I mean, you didn't take the full amount. At least I don't think, at least based on my numbers, you didn't. I hope I'm not contradicting you. So, how much could tax bills go? Well, if they do go up the whole that amount, you could probably anticipate a max of about that 3.4% from the county's perspective on the tax bill. All right, not talking about the whole tax bill. I'm just talking about the county's portion. All right, you guys don't believe me, or you guys want some proof? Believe it or not, technology is awesome. This QR code is something I just realized this week. We can start using more and directing people to the points where we have all this information readily available, all right? This QR code will lead you to the clerk's website where the total calculations are displayed. Everything for the prior year and prior years is right here, all right? Let's take a look at an extension report. Now, we're not done with 2024, but I'm going to use 2022 and 23 as a reference, all right? Let's take a look at the rate-setting EAV. The rate-setting EAV in 2022 was about $10.2 billion. The levy request, 71 million, or almost 72. Had a tax rate of 0.698. All right. Let's now move forward 2023, where we equalized on an average of around 10%, plus or minus. The rate setting EAV goes up to 11 billion. That's an increase. Now, the levies did go up, all right? But guess what still happens to the tax rate? It still goes down. Why? Because the amount of that EAV increased so much that it really offset that and it created that thing. A lot of people will say to me, well, if you increase the assessments, then you automatically decrease the rate. It's all a game. Understand, it's not a game. There isn't some backdoor people saying, hey, I'm going to do this or we're going to do this because we can. It's the math. It is only math. The reason you see it as a pattern is because the math and the pattern is real, all right? Understand that. Everything in the assessments is math. Okay, if that makes sense? Okay, let's talk exemptions. I'm almost done, guys. I'm getting kind of hot up here. Let's talk exemptions. So how can you help? I don't care about all that, Alex. I really don't. How do I get my tax bill down? All right? How can I do that? How do I make sure that I'm getting the best bang for my buck and getting everything I'm due? All right? So let's talk about what the effective exemptions are. Let's go back to dinner. All right? These 4 people have been going out to dinner with Alice now for a while, or lunch. All right? They realize Alice is getting up there in age, and they want Alice to keep coming. So they agree to kind of offset some of her costs. All right? Alice is still independent, strong woman. She wants to pay for herself, but, you know, a slight break might be appropriate for her. So what do they decide to do? Well, that break gets distributed among everyone else. So they end up paying $22.50 from that original $20. All right? So what does Alice end up paying? $10. All right? Exemptions fall on everyone else. It's an agreement from everyone else or from your state legislatures to say, okay, we're going to be shifting this for these people. All right? The exemptions do not touch the bill. They're not discounts. They're not coupons. All right, and a lot of people really misinterpret what those exemptions are, and they do. They're not coupons. Understand that. So what exemptions are available? All right. If you own a house and you're living in it and using it for your personal, you can get an exemption on that. That exemption amounts to $8,000. Let's say you own two houses, one here and one in Florida, or one here and one in Arizona. I think a lot of our people go down to Arizona now. You're entitled to one exemption on one house. You get to decide, all right? Wherever you want the best benefit, that's where you can have it, all right? You can't get any other exemptions without first having that homestead exemption. So understand that it's important for you to identify that. Our assessment notices have a list of what they are, and they have little check marks or a yes next to the ones that are applied to yours. Okay. If you're 65 years of age or older, that's when you get the next, one of the next exemptions, all right? So, and you get it in the year that you turn. So for 2025 assessment, payable in 2026, if you turn 65 this year and your birthday isn't until December, you can already stop by and fill out that paperwork and get it for the 2025 assessment year, payable next year. You don't have to wait. That's the nice thing about doing it that way, all right? Understand that you don't have to already be 65 in order to benefit from it, because when that tax bill comes, you will be that age. It's plain and simple, okay? Senior freeze. Freezes are very helpful. Now, this is called the low-income senior freeze, all right? What that does is the first year you qualify, that establishes that low-end base. That is the assessment it is kept at the whole time. As long as you qualify for it, you will be that number will be used in the final calculation of your bill. All right? If for some reason you had to take extra money out of your account and you venture over the $65,000 threshold, guess what? You can come back the next year and still apply for it. And it doesn't reset at the new value. It still goes back to that original one. So understand that when it comes and you're explaining that to people. That $65,000, we're starting to realize is getting close to, needing to go up. I know that a lot of people personally in McHenry County were frozen in 2011, 2012, 2013 when the markets were down. All right. Now, if they're getting close to this, and if they don't no longer qualify for it, they are not just getting a couple $100 tax bill difference. That is becoming much more significant. Why? Because they are being unfrozen, and that's going to the full value based on what's happening now. So understand that. So if you have any conversations to have, if you want to talk about that more, that's something definitely that I can give you guys more information on. But there are people that are at 65, really close right now, that are going to start losing out on that. But it's a really great one to have. There's disabled veterans exemptions, returning veterans, persons with disabilities, and home improvement exemptions. If you improve your house, well, I can't tell you how often people call us up and say, hey, I want to do this. How much is my tax bill going to go up? My answer is, if you're really that worried about it, how much do you want it? All right? You should want to improve your property. All right? We want you to improve your property above and beyond just fixing up the stuff. You want an addition and you can afford it and you want it, go for it. Here's what happens. You'll get a permit, hopefully. We'll be aware of it. When it's completed, we will assess it. And then for 4 years, you will not be assessed on it. All right? Caveat for any of those that are hearing about this exemption now. Let's say 10 years ago, you finished something, we didn't catch it. All right? And now it's 10 years later, and we finally say, hey, that assessment's got to go up because of that. Well, guess what? You no longer qualify for it because it's from that point of completion. All right? You got it. You got a 4-year benefit plus something because we missed it. So understand that that's the intent of the code. All right. Please encourage everyone to check their exemptions. All right. And so that everyone knows, if you miss out on an exemption and you thought you were due one for last year, understand you have until September, October of the following year in order to apply for it. So we can fix it. All right. That's just that. Well, once we get to that certain point, that gets locked down and we can't do anything anymore. All right. Not without really, breaking down some doors. All right. It's really unlikely. Okay. So as soon as you find out, let us know, and we will let you know if you do qualify. All right, and then please understand everything is calculated. All this is the math that kind of goes into place with this. All right? And that's pretty much it on the exemptions. Okay, so, any questions? This next one is actually a question that was submitted to me by a board member, so that pretty much concludes it. I wish it was a little bit smoother than it was, but it is what it is, all right? Any questions?
Ms. Altoff?
Has there been any study of what the total amount of exemptions are in McHenry County and how that affects our tax bills overall, seeing as how they're extraordinarily high to begin with?
It's something I could do if you want some specifics. There's reports out there that I can calculate. Has there been something done where we can kind of see that? I can't say that I've done it, but I love doing that math.
I'm sitting and smiling at you. I would ask you to work with our treasurer, who I know is kind of in the midst of trying to calculate
Donna and I have
that
been
number.
talking a lot.
I think that really is going to open our eyes to a huge amount specifically here in the county.
Okay?
Maybe different in others,
Yeah,
but here.
work with Donna, done.
Ms. Van Hoff?
Yes, I have two questions. Now, I'm aware of the homestead exemption and the senior exemption because they're both applicable to me.
No.
Yes. Yeah, so, in fact, I just had a birthday. I just turned 69, so.
Well, happy birthday.
Thank you. But the low-income senior freeze and the home improvement, now I've heard a little bit about the home improvement. Is there some literature, like any flyers that you have that we can have so that if we have constituents who have questions about?
We have the forms already, and the home improvement one, I believe, is also included in some things that we have. We are revamping our website to make some of that stuff easier. Okay. And like I said, those QR codes are becoming more and more common so that we can more easily share that information and disseminate it. That might be something that we're looking at doing. So we are working on that. Educating people is the best remedy for helping people. All right. That way, again, if we make it easier for you, you can ask and we can help. I mean, so that is on the agenda and list of things to do in terms of that. And again, these vignettes are just the assessment 101 stuff. I mean, there is much more that I have planned for those more complicated topics, like the border review and or how to prep an appeal if you really need one. And stuff like that. Really just understanding assessments, because I've gotten some feedback that says they really don't understand the system and what we're doing. And I have the visuals and the ability to kind of teach that. So, and I'm starting to work on that to a way where people say, oh, this makes sense. Why didn't I know this before? So, and that's on the things to come.
Any other questions for Alex? Seeing none, thank you, Alex.
Oh, well, Tracy did have one. Or did you not want to go it?
She was just sharing it with me.
It was basically on new construction, because we
Mike.
deal with that, sorry.
Sorry, didn't mean to put you on the spot. If you wanted to take it back.
I got this, Tracy, I got this. All right, go ahead.
Good?
Oh, you turned it off now.
No, it's not.
No, it's on.
Oh,
It was basically on new construction, because when I refer back to my old assessor days, new construction is looked at a little bit differently than how we need to look at it from this perspective.
so, okay.
So
All right, so new
I
construction.
wanted a little bit more detailed explanation as
okay.
to,
I gotcha.
yeah,
gotcha.
when they say we don't want to take new construction, what does that mean?
So I'm going to give you the basics, and then I will follow up based on the answer, all right? Because I was able to throw something together for you. All right, explaining new construction. All right, so let's go back to this equation. Now, I explained already once how that levy amount can increase based on the CPI and what you take, all right? There's another way that goes up, all right? And it's through new construction, all right? So this is now assessments 201. This is something to get more complicated, but for you guys, it's great to know, all right? So I got the same subdivision at two different time frames here. All right? This was 10 years ago. This is more recent. All right. Could the levy have stayed the same and still support this subdivision? Could the schools, could the municipality, could the road district have supported that with the same levies without an increase to it? Probably not, right? That's the answer. So you are allowed to now, based off that new construction, increase your levies based off of that, in conjunction with that, okay? So that's why it's allowed within this. Okay, so that's how, and the intent of new construction. It's supposed to be able to grow with your community, all right? And it allows those levies to increase appropriately, all right? And that's where all the government agencies really fall into that responsibility of how much do we take? Do we take the full amount or whatnot, all right? All right, a levy can increase by the amount of new construction. All right. And the question that's always asked me is, hey, I'm told that if I don't take new construction this year, I've lost it. It's gone. It's gone for this year, right, only? Well, no, it's actually, since it's a percentage increase over year, if you don't take the full amount, then you actually do lose that amount moving forward because it's compounding. All right. So the idea is to always take the new construction that you think can support that amount. Again, there's different philosophies that go into play, but from the assessment's perspective, that would be the answer that I give, all right? But understand that, yes, if you don't take the full amount, again, you won't have access to that in the future, all right? Because it's a compounding math, okay? Does that make sense? So you want to be appropriate with that and exercising that in the future. Does that make sense? Did that answer the question? Oh, and, here's the visual, just to make everyone laugh.
Mr. Scala?
So, new construction's like a sponge, all right? The new construction's that water, and it just kind of absorbs it, so. Sorry, I had to throw a SpongeBob reference in there.
So not to get to level 301, but you can always do a look back to recapture that if you wanted to.
That is professor level stuff. If you're aware of that, I am not personally aware from it from the assessment's perspective, but I just know that that's how the math works, and so that's what I relayed. If you're telling me that you can go back and do that, great. If you need to.
Yeah,
But
not recommended, just as a.
Okay, all right. So there are tools. Okay.
301 level.
Okay, yeah, that is next level stuff. That's from my perspective. Thank you for correcting me on that because I did not know that.
All right, any further questions from the board for Alex? Seeing none, thank you, Alex.
Okay, thank you.
With that, we will move on to new business. Do any members have items from next Tuesday's agenda they'd like to remove for discussion? Mr. Scala?
16B27.
B27?
Yes, please.
Okay, any others?
Well, and then I guess a discussion on the.
The Marengo loan?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Which would eventually be on our agenda.
Any other board members have items they'd like to pull? Seeing none, let's talk about the Marengo loan first, because that'll be under new and unfinished business. Mr. Scala?
Okay, so, board members, we have in front of you revised documents regarding the agreement with the city of Marengo. So just for a little background information, Chairman Bueller and I, along with other people from the county, were at a meeting in Marengo to discuss the match for the DECO loan that was approved, and that total amount is $750,000. That there was an agreement that was crafted based on that meeting, subsequently did pass the Marengo board, came before Finance Committee last week, and at that Finance Committee, there was a lot of discussion regarding the document and the wording in it. And the committee, I felt, did a really good job of working through that and making recommended changes to the document, which is what you have before you this morning. That would then still need to go back to the city of Marengo for approval because now it's a modified document. So whether they do a completely different resolution or just vote on the modifications, that's up to them. But there was still, I guess, to kind of talk a little bit about the discussion at finance, there was still some disagreements about the language, but I think this represents a pretty good consensus of where the committee was at. Derek Moorfield, who is their, I guess, acting, I don't know what your title is.
City manager.
City manager, who used to be in McHenry and who we've worked with when he was there, is here also to answer questions if there are questions that he can answer on behalf of the city of Marengo.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Altoff?
I would just strongly urge every board member, if you haven't listened to the Finance Committee, it was a phenomenal discussion. Everyone participated. I thought it was the most interesting example of how committees should work. So I would say if you really want the details, please take the hour and 10 minutes, I think it was, to listen to that portion of the Finance Committee meeting. It was excellent. And I thank all of the members that were in attendance. Everyone participated, and I think they came up with a much better contract and protected the county in a way that is in our best interest. So I strongly recommend before you come to the board meeting, you listen to that committee.
And yet still beneficial to the city of Marengo.
Seriously? Yes.
Okay, any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, 16B27, Corners Project. Mr. Scala?
So this item was also discussed at finance. We were losing a quorum at the end of the meeting, which did go till like noon or something like that. I don't know what time we were losing quorum. So we did end up passing this out of committee just so that we could have that discussion here today. But I was not able to finish asking all the questions I had, and I don't know if there was committee members that still had questions in addition to what I had left. But so I commented that I would be making those questions today, I guess, to try and finish moving this along. I did, just for information, I did talk to Tom and the representative from Wold after the meeting about my ideas in regards to the refrigeration, which I was trying to get to. And I did receive an email from Dr. Rain kind of answering some of those questions, although quite honestly, I got more confused after reading that email because it wasn't quite answering the question that I was asking. But basically, my question / issue is with the new refrigeration / freezing setup that is being proposed under this renovation. And I don't have a problem with the new freezer unit, which would be a separate standalone unit. My question was more revolving around the operational of the refrigerated side, which is where our current freezer is at, and utilizing the existing freezer system and not modifying it, which is kind of where this email that I got was going. I'm not recommending modifying. I'm not recommending that we change out the refrigerant in it. I'm saying that the unit itself is still operating, which was kind of one of the questions that I had asked. You know, are we having maintenance issues with it? Because naturally, if we're having maintenance issues with it, then we should replace it. I mean, that's, you know, at end of life. But that's not the case. I mean, our staff does a great job of maintaining and keeping our, whether it's refrigeration or freezer or any of our stuff, you know, in good working order. So I kind of had a problem with originally taking a system that is working fine and not having issues and throwing it away, purchasing all new just because we're doing a renovation. And so my recommendation was to still have a backup system, because I think it is critical that we have a backup system for them, because naturally you don't want to have an issue where a system goes down and suddenly you're scrambling to try and keep things frozen or cooled. So my point was to utilize this system that we have, which is a smaller system, purchase another smaller system as the backup, which would have different refrigerant, but then have both systems being used at the same time, one as a backup and the other one. But it gives the efficiencies of the system, and it also, in my mind, produces a situation where we have a backup, we have a system that will fail eventually, which is the current system, will fail at some point in the future, which we then could replace. But we wouldn't have to spend all that money up front now to replace everything that is there. So that was kind of, on that side of it, that was where I was going, which the email didn't quite, it kind of confused what I was trying to ask, which, again, I wasn't able to ask at a committee meeting. And I understand the contractor naturally doesn't want to do this. And quite honestly, it's, the contractor would rather put in all brand new, get profit on top of the all new versus modifying and using the existing. I also understand that that's not how it was bid or sent out for bid, so naturally that would cause problems with the bids that were submitted, because it's doing something differently. But my problem is I didn't when I talked to Dr. Rain at the committee meeting, the questions were, and I don't remember if I asked it or someone else asked it, but the question was pertaining to, and are the deceased called clients? I don't know what they're exactly called, but the deceased people that you're having in your facility, kind of what the data and numbers are behind it, because we should be making decisions based on not necessarily natural disasters, but what is our intake into that facility on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, similar to kind of what the sheriff does with their daily population reports that we get, which is how much inmates are in the jail every single day, and understanding how large of a facility do we really need to be efficient and meet the needs of what the county has as far as the clients that are there. So those are, I can ask specific direct questions, but those are some of my concerns with what I see before us right now and where my thought process was when we had the committee.
Dr. Reen, do you want to
Sure.
address?
First off, thank you, everybody. Never want to follow the tax guy anyways, but that being said, let me just kind of make a brief statement first, and then we'll kind of get to where you're kind of going. Since I took office in 2020, I've worked hard to improve our office operations, reduce expenses, make our corner office one of the best, if not the best, corner office in the state. The plan in front of you obviously provides, in my opinion, the best options for the lowest cost and the greatest efficiencies for this particular project. The corners across the state, we come together and talk about the issues that we have challenges with now and going forward. And in case you don't know, I am actually one of the vice presidents of the Illinois Coroners and Medical Examiners Associations as well. The coroners offices across our state are playing catch up to many operational deficiencies throughout the state. Will County, Kane County, Sangamon County, LaSalle counties. Those counties just recently all have new buildings that were implemented in their counties. Many others are working, such as myself here, on these processes and updating their facilities. The overall project discussion started back in 2021. The morgue was actually built in 1986. and for all intensive purposes has not been touched since then. The storage and cooling units, which you're talking about in the morgue, are rusting outside and inside. Drawers don't work well on the workstations when we do autopsies. The floor, which is made up of 2-inch tiles with grout floor, are falling apart and are basically very unsanitary. We have to plug the drain in the floor that we use because every time we clean after an autopsy because of the unpleasant smells that come back up within that. The size of the cooling units have also been over capacities. In my opinion, should never really happen unless there is a mass casualty of some sort. The coroner's office obviously is a 24/7 office. We manage and address one of the worst things that can happen to family, friends, loved ones, and can be highly emotional situations. We have to manage situations involving suicides, homicides, overdose deaths. These can also become criminal and civil cases. Our office handles and deals with highly infectious diseases as well. We've had to do autopsies on people that have had TB, HIV, hepatitis, and also at the beginning of the pandemic situation. We also had to handle decompositions as well. PPEs have been used for autopsies, which include Tyvek suits, thicker gloves, masks that had to be done. The coroner's office is part of an emergency management system. We have to plan just like any other departments at the county as far as mass casualties as well. We have 2 airports, trains, and part of an interstate system that run through our county. There's a couple of, I wanted to say amendments, but that ain't right. What are they called?
Options?
Alternates, sorry. There's a couple alternates that are before you as well. And I hope you guys understand that we started this project back in 2021. 2023, the county board assessed or put $700,000 towards this project, and in 2024, 1.5 for a $2.2 million project. I think we've gone over this in dealing with Wold, the county, with Peter, and different aspects of what I think we need going forward. I don't think this is necessarily what we want to do, it's what we need to do going forward. And also for the future. Now, getting back to your question, Mike, as far as, I'm still not sure, so I think Kirsta might be able to handle this question that you have. Use that one.
I'll do my best. So one item I just want to point out, so the equipment was solely pulled out of and is not a part of the base bid construction, which would be with Stuckey Construction, for the same fact that you just noted that you don't want to have equipment such a large cost. Doing it as a separate direct purchase through a GSA contract, then you're not asking a contractor to procure that on their end in the construction contract, so they are not actually adding their overhead and profit to that. So those are 2 separate. I'm going to ask Dr. Rain to verify what I'm saying on this next one, but the existing space that the cooler and the freezer inhabit are accessed through different doors, so they are not contiguous with each other. So if you were to install a new freezer in the proposed location, it would block entry into the back portion of that space, which is the existing freezer. So the 2 could not be used through the one entrance into the cooler unless they were reconfigured to basically join together at what is currently now a separation wall.
So that's what we talked about in the hallway, and that's not what I was recommending, or suggesting, I guess. So do you remember our conversation?
Right, and I think it's just that if you want to use what is a cooler and a freezer as a larger freezer, even if, or I'm sorry, a larger cooler situation, they are two separate items. You would, with the new freezer to be installed, you would not be able to actually access the back.
Correct.
Freezer
So
space.
I was like,
I'm sorry.
so 100% the freezer that is going to be as on the diagram to the right of what is existing, 100% don't have an issue with that. And what we had talked about was renovating the floor and everything in that space, but not taking out the units that are in that particular area where the current freezer is at, leaving the unit that freezes that there, but now it would be cooling that area because that's the refrigeration area. So, and that's what I'm saying. I'm not recommending that we modify that space. What Dr. Rain is proposing to do with the configuration, not trying to change that. I'm just trying to change the getting rid of the existing system that is being used to freeze and using that to supplement the cooling side of that space. Where, because you still got to take down that, you still got to modify that space because that's what you're talking about on your drawing.
I think what you're saying is taking, these are built-in panels, correct?
Yes.
So they're built-in panels. And you're talking about taking the current cooler and freezer, the material that's there right now, and reconfiguring it to use for the new cooler. Is that correct?
Well, my understanding is you want to increase the ceiling height from 8 feet to 10 feet.
Correct.
So with that, you are literally modifying the physical space.
Correct.
So I'm not suggesting.
Well, no, well,
The current plan has to remove the existing cooler and freezer completely. So the new system that would be coming in is a completely new system. It's not a modification of the existing.
plus there's also, correct me, that there is things above right now.
There are things currently above.
That have to be moved as well when we take this out, to increase the height. So I think there's ductwork and.
There's ductwork and one of the compressors is
Yeah,
up
and the
there.
compressors is up there as well. So we'd have to, when we take that top off, so to speak, if you're looking at just keeping that, so to speak, we still have to modify it, but then we have to tie into what we already existingly have. And I don't know where you're gonna get that. Plus, you're talking about warranties as well with things. This is a 40-year-old system. Even the R factor that's over the time has probably gone down. So, does that make sense, what I'm saying? Or is it answering your question, I guess?
I am not able to make myself clear as to
Okay.
what I'm asking, so I
Can somebody else
apologize
help
for
out
that,
here?
but let me ask you a question. The current freezer, it's not a independent unit.
Yes, it is.
It's independent, meaning that the mechanics of the freezer itself, meaning you have a condenser and everything.
Correct.
Are you saying that all of that is inside the freezer unit currently there?
It works independently of the cooler. I think the cooler, one of the compressors just got installed above the existing equipment, and I think one might be outside. So it may be the freezer. I'm not sure exactly which one is located above.
Okay, well, so that was my understanding.
But they're independent.
Is that it was outside, so that there's lines coming in that is doing all that work. So that's what I was trying to, because you're proposing getting rid of that.
Correct.
Yeah, and so that's what my concern is why are we getting rid of a system that's currently working? It's not physically in the way for the work that you're trying to get done, you can still utilize it to where it before was freezing. Now we're only using that same exact space for cooling, and you're talking about still having a duplicate system so that you have a backup, which again, I'm not recommending that we get rid of. I'm just saying, why are we doing, because you're talking about getting a 5-ton unit.
Okay, so you're talking about the condenser unit.
Yeah,
Okay. Not necessarily the physical space itself.
correct.
Okay. Now we're on the same page.
Well, I hope so. I don't know.
At least I think so. So you're talking about the condensing unit that is being currently used. It was bought 10 years ago as a 20-year cycle, so to speak.
Correct.
And,
Because, right.
And-
Yeah,
and I think that unit was bought for about $30,000, I believe.
I don't know.
Yes. Tom Burrow says yes. So, yes, so that's, so now we're going back to the system of, okay, if we need a bigger condenser unit and things in that nature, okay, that the manufacturer, the people that are putting this in and have their condensing unit, you want us to tie into that somehow?
No.
No.
They're independent.
Independent.
They're completely, and that's why this the whole warranty
Okay.
thing doesn't make sense to me, because they're acting independently of each other. They're both supporting the same space.
Right.
They are backup
And I
systems
think,
to
and I
each other.
think, I'll let you speak about that unit.
No, I feel like there's a disconnect in what we're saying. So the freezer, existing freezer and existing cooler are right next to each other in the space where the new cooler would be located. Each has one condenser that's running them. I don't know which one was replaced 10 years ago or if both of them were. So our work in the contract documents is to demo the big panelized box for each, the cooler and the freezer that's there. And with that, obviously, the condensers go away because then a brand new cooler, panelized cooler, would go in that space. The freezer panelized would go in a separate space. And then each one of those, they are designed as full systems. So each one of those has a redundant system to it, would have 2 condensers each, located both outside. So that box itself, if that is new, the person providing it, they provide this as a system. So if it was like, well, we want the box, but we're gonna hook up our existing mechanicals to it, they will not warranty anything with that box going forward, because you've basically taken part of their design away from that, and they have given you an insulated panel system, and that's about it.
So because we maintain everything ourselves, I'm not as concerned about the warranty side of it. I mean, naturally, if their box were to fail, meaning a panel, whatever it is has nothing to do with the system. It has to do with the fabrication of that panel. That would still be warrantyable because it has nothing to do with the system itself.
Yes, I guess. I mean, panels usually aren't the things that fail, it's usually the function of them.
100% agree. And that's why I'm saying if it did fail, they would be responsible for it because it has nothing to do with the system. So I maybe I'm making a mountain out of a molehill. I'm just trying to understand why we would prospectively spend that money that we're talking about spending when potentially, idea-wise, you wouldn't need to. And quite honestly, because even in your new system that you're talking about, yes, it's brand new, and yes, it's warranted, and it has a redundant backup system in and of itself, but you're also getting rid of something that is currently working, which we don't have maintenance issues with, that theoretically could still be utilized.
Sure, I don't disagree with that. At the point where we're at in this, we did not have any mechanical engineers design this because it was a full system design that would be part of the equipment purchase by the county. So if you were to go that route, we would have to get a mechanical engineer on board to then design that system to actually make sure that those condensers would work. We were looking at it as you in the, it seems like it might work, but we have not done any design work for that.
Okay. And I'm not sure what just to throw out there, the unit that is there. I think there was some talk about this when we were having meetings about the condenser that we have, that if it was to just still be there, it would be over capacity. And it would have to, obviously, that was kind of the discussion. Hence why I think that it was, now we can, again, look back into it to talk about that as far as if it is or is not, but.
Well, but again, and I'm not a mechanical engineer, so.
Me neither.
But you have a,
But I understand it.
You have
I mean,
a specific envelope that you're trying to cool, right? So if that unit that we have existing that you would theoretically keep was 1.5 ton, you would calculate and say, well, the other unit that you're gonna have with it would have to be a 3 ton, or maybe it could be another 1.5 ton, or whatever. You would build that space, or you'd build that design based on what that calculation is.
Correct.
And I'm not that kind of I don't know
right,
what
I
that is.
understand what
So.
you're saying and things in that nature. I'm not sure, let's just say that the unit is not quite, like you said, it's 1.5 ton, whatever that may or may not be. And we have to add another unit of whatever that tonnage would, cover and stuff like that. Now, doing that, would that unit that's newer as a backup, so to speak, or however you want to fill in the gap with that, is there going to be a warranty issue with that with the existing unit that we're using? So
No, because they're acting independently.
So that I'm just saying that would be a question.
Well,
I
it
understand.
shouldn't be a warranty issue
Right.
because they're acting independently.
So
Anyways,
okay.
and then the only, I guess, going back to when at committee, there was questions pertaining to numbers. And I don't know if you keep data, and maybe if you don't, maybe you could start keeping data similar to what the sheriff does as far as a daily, you get that? Okay, I don't see that, so I don't know, but, so that would be helpful, at least so that, I'm not into just fixing a problem. To me, I'd like to fix a problem that potentially could be here 5 years, 7 years, 8 years. And if you're, I guess, the trend data that, if you're getting that, I haven't seen it. So if you have that data, that'd be great to see. Like, how often are the refrigeration and the freezer units, filled to capacity? Or how often are they, whatever they are? Because, naturally, you don't want to replace what's there if trend data shows that we need a little more capacity for our clients, and I'm not saying you build for, worst case scenario, because we have, as you expressed in committee, you have the support of other facilities that in the case of something you could utilize for emergency situations, but.
You can, but that is definitely not an ideal situation of what you're trying to do. But as I said in committee, we've been over capacity probably 6 to 8 times as well, during just the time that I've been here as well. And, I don't think, running normal daily operations that should ever happen, in my opinion. That's kind of where I sit with that.
All right, I'll let someone else take over.
Ms. Van Hoff?
Yes, I'll be brief. This came up in law and government. Am I not?
There you go.
Okay, this came up in law and government, and we had some discussion on that. And I, Member Kunkel actually had a concern, and we had questions about that. And basically, we share that belief of Member Scala. This is that 20-year unit.
40.
that- a
Or
40
no,
it's a
you're talking
20-year
about the
unit
condenser
that-
unit?
Yes.
The
that we're
condenser
10
unit
years
is
into.
10 years
Right.
into,
So-
halfway through.
That's right. So
There
it's
we go.
at half-life. And so
Yeah.
we're talking about getting rid of a unit that has a 10-year lifespan left. So there was no kind of consideration, because we look at the alternates and I don't think anybody had a problem on the committee with the alternates that were proposed. It was just this big piece. So I will concede to Member Scala. I see his light, or Member Kunkel was the one that brought this question up.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mr. Kaminsky?
Mr. Ring.
Mike? Pull your mic towards you.
In the packet that we had the bid paper, and there was 2 items that don't have numbers in the column for proposed investment. That
So
was
those-
item 3 and 6.
Right, so those 2 items, as far as alternates go, one would be the tile that would be in the morgue. It's antimicrobial and things in that nature, and would be put on the walls just specifically the walls, within the morgue area only. And then the bulletproof glass, which would be up in our waiting area, that is definitely for security reasons. We don't have security in our building at all. So, when people visit, it's a very emotional time for them, for whatever reason it may or may not be. And sometimes they also don't like the answers that we have for them. And again, we also deal with, possible criminal cases, depending upon what they are, and even civil cases. We do get a lot of civil cases. Believe it or not, we get subpoenaed a lot to testify just for civil, as well as other things. So those were the alternates that I put in there. I believe that you guys, somebody would have to make a motion to accept those on Tuesday and to go forward with those. Does that make sense? Okay? Okay.
Mr. Kunkel?
Yeah, unfortunately, I did bring all this to light. Mr. Scala is absolutely correct. What he is speaking of, it can be done. Originally, when all this was proposed, moons back, they were talking about lockers. Lockers or drawers work, as most of you know, your home refrigerator work. It's a built-in unit with both the coil and the compressor self-contained. There was no option with it. But when I saw the drawings move to rooms, that opened the paradigm of using existing tonnage that we have left. It is still doable with this project. I'm not saying it makes sense. It is still doable with the project. The purpose for it is, number one, we owe the taxpayers something for their unit that we're throwing out early. Number two, it's always more efficient to split your tonnage. I'm going to use just easy round numbers. Let's say that the refrigeration unit that we're putting in for the decedents is normally operated full, and it needs 3 tons to operate that at full capacity, especially door opening and close, fresh decedents being moved in and out. You have 3 tons there. If you split that with 1.5 tons and 1.5 tons, when that unit is not being opened and closed, when there are not multiple bodies and decedents being brought in and out of that unit there, it can be normally carried on 1.5 tons of efficiency. So you're not always needing that 3 tons. Therefore, normal day-to-day operation, this unit is running on 1.5 tons, so long as nobody's going in and out. And as far as my numbers are concerned that I've seen, we're doing 6 to 10 autopsies a month. That's not a lot of refrigeration door use going in and out. That works good. In meeting, we were told that 4 to 6 times a year they had gone over capacity. Again, not a lot of use. we're having a energy savings on 1.5 tons. When you need the 3 tons, it kicks in and it's there. When you don't, it's not. This versus putting 3 tons online means every time the door opens and closes, every time the decedents come in and out, 3 tons pull in. That's a harder need on energy source. It's a harder need for running. So what Mr. Scala is proposing is absolutely correct and could absolutely work. I do not know at this time if that makes financial sense backing up and through the engineering. As most of us know, the engineering costs more on these projects sometimes than the work. Again, that's why we were looking for answers. The skew on the board here now is the fact that we don't get enough and didn't get enough details. We understand there's new refrigeration put in, but I didn't even know till today that is an independent vendor from our actual contractor. So we never saw any specs or anything on that. That would have facilitated this quite a bit. I am a hard no on ballistic glass. I am a hard no on tile because this budget already is very precarious and all construction jobs. I have 40 years experience in this. All construction jobs except a few Hail Mary miracles run over budget. We're too close to the line. There is time in the future for ballistic film to be added to this project if necessary, and if the dollars are still there. And epoxy is used nationwide for facilities such as this. We have to be prudent of these dollars. We can't just throw the Taj Mahal in here for 6 to 10 autopsies a month. And our community, if we were in unheralded growth, if we were moving out of that 311,000 to 450,000, absolutely I could see expansion of the system. We are not. So today, we do need to upgrade the facility from the 40-year-old facility it is. But we do not need to be running off into the stratosphere with this. Let's be prudent. We have dollars already budgeted. Let's stay under that line so we hit that line when this project's over. Thank you.
I believe that there are 4 units that will be used for this coolers, and just so you know. The other thing is that we also get, it's not just autopsies. We have to bring back people that don't have next of kin, anything in that nature, to do that. So we do house people while we may have to run down a family member, a distant cousin, somebody to take over other, funeral or cremation permit things. Sometimes we don't find them. Sometimes we have to do it ourselves as the county.
I get it, but we can't do too much on sometimes. And I agree. I'm not trying to cut your capacity or size. None of that. Today is the first time hearing that you have split systems running. Great for energy efficiency. Great. I love all of that. The last component is just what we owe taxpayers to this unit that we bought. I do understand that. And as I said, as I perceive this, the 30,000 plus or minus dollars saved could be $40,000 saved. You're already saving me the energy efficiency. I think we would eat that up in engineering or very close to try and re-engineer the system, adding this half-life component in it. I'm willing to concede now, knowing that we are split systems and knowing that this will work. I'm willing to concede that. I do definitely reiterate, let's save the ballistic money, let's save the tile money, because this project's still a remodel and is still gonna come very close to the line. But the rest, good to go.
Sure. Just the other thing too is that within that 1.9 that we're looking at right now, that also has a 10% contingency within that amount as well. So it's not, if we have something that goes over budget or things in that nature, whatever that may or may not be, at least 10% is already in that right now. The other thing is that to do the tile, you want to do the tile now. you don't want to do it afterwards, because then you're cutting around everything and things of that nature within the morgue.
Right, and I don't want to do the tile at all. Like I
Well,
said,
no, that's
epoxy's
fine.
used all
That's
the time.
that's
yeah.
fine.
Epoxy is great. We
I-
use it in the industry. It's fantastic.
I think that we're not building the Taj Mahal here. I think we're using what we need to do. I think personally, I've shown that I'm also a fiscally responsible member of my department and of the county as well. And I don't think that we're overstepping what that is. Now, people may disagree. That's okay. I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
So,
I'm not
but-
trying to impugn your honor by
No.
any means.
No, I'm just saying. I'm just
I've
saying-
done construction projects all my working life.
I understand.
So I know where this is, where it's at.
So-
And you say there's a 10% contingency. All projects have contingencies built into them.
I know.
They still don't make the grade.
Right, and.
That's
you-
my
you-
opinion
yeah,
for
And you'd
the
still
board
would
and
have
for-
to go another 10% on top of that even, so it would be 20%. And I agree, it's a remodel, but I think we've really done our homework here as far as what could have happened, behind the scene, you never know what's gonna be behind the walls, ever, and things in that nature. But I think we've done a really good job as far as answering that and doing our homework of what we need to do with this project, so.
Again, nobody's impugning your honor. We
No,
answer to
I
the taxpayers.
I get it.
And we know how much is necessary to run this and to do this project. And I believe it's incumbent upon us to stay in budget.
Understand.
Mr. Kearns.
Thank you for bringing this forward. But a couple of questions. One of my fears is modifying this project to try to save a few bucks on keeping old equipment. I'm a little concerned about that we save a nickel and later on it costs us $1 on that with the modification of the existing plan that you have forward. So I'm okay supporting the current plan that you have with the 2 new units and everything. I'm okay with that. I do want to go further onto this tile and different things. Explain to me why you need these tile, the wall tile.
Well, I think
What areas is this in, the wall tile?
the wall tile will be in the morgue itself. It's not gonna be anywhere else. So basically, where the working station is, where the coolers and freezers are, we're within that confines of the morgue. So, as I stated, it is an antimicrobial wall or tile, okay? It does help with the things that we have to deal with. As I said, we do autopsies in various ways and things of that nature. And having that in there, I think, just helps sanitation-wise even better. So, but
Can you explain to me on the sanitation wise? Because I'm not grasping this a little bit on the sanitation. I know you talked about smells, but I'm assuming that's drains and everything else when you were doing the wash down. Is it a current problem with the current state of the walls that, without those tile? And what is the option that we're going to do if we don't do the tile?
well, as of right now, the option is what Mr. Kunkel had stated. It basically makes for a better sanitation and sanitary area. That is the bottom line, is how that works. So, when we have to deal with people that have infectious diseases, what's going to happen with the next pandemic? Whenever that happens, it happens, throughout time. What's the next disease? What's the next one?
So the alternative to the tile is epoxy on the walls?
I just want to make sure that it's just an epoxy paint.
Oh, it's just an epoxy
It's just
paint.
epoxy paint, so more durable than your standard latex or whatever we're putting. So the existing walls are CMU block, somewhat porous. So the thought was, during the design, finding a large format tile, less grout lines, something that's not as porous would give them better odor mitigation properties as well as cleanability. So then to save money, the base bid amount is just a repaint with
Okay.
an epoxy paint.
And I see Tom walking up forward, which I question why Tom wasn't answering a lot of these questions earlier, to help out on this a little bit, since he's the expert of all this.
Tom, are you prepared to weigh in on this so we can move forward here?
One
Or
question.
anything you want to add?
I'm trying not to confuse the matter further.
Oh, that's fine.
And I had thought, and it sounds maybe incorrectly, that the morgue area itself was under the base bid in tile, and the add alternate was to do all the rest of the space. That's incorrect?
That's incorrect.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so if we use the epoxy, you could redo it, you still have, you feel you have less sanitation with the epoxy paint?
I believe so.
When you can clean that up
Yes.
each,
Yes.
okay. All right. And the epoxy paint would last about how long?
I mean, a good paint.
You're hosing that down with chemicals and everything, correct?
Yeah. 5-10 years.
Okay. The cost of the tile's around 50,000.
Correct.
Okay. I'm not for, I guess I don't think we need the ballistic side of the glass, but I could go with the tile on this. In my opinion, I'd rather do some of these things right the first time. And then instead of redoing it every 5 years and different things. So my opinion is you split the bath water there on the, between the ballistic and the tile, the wall tile and all that. So the sanitation, the maintenance over time, and that's where I'm at with the condensing units and everything, is to have that all new and updated with the new warranties and everything else under all of that. Get 5 years, if you avoid that warranty on that condensing unit, you're not saving any money at time. So I'll leave it at that. That's where my vote would go. And I don't know how we add this in for the tile. It's not in this right now.
It's not currently in this. Tuesday night, if someone were to be open to amending and adding it into it, I think that would be the appropriate way to proceed.
Okay, there's what I'm asking. And I would ask if someone were to amend this on Tuesday night, that they amend it not as a package of the two items, but individually. Thank you.
Ms. Campbell?
Just real quickly, and I apologize if this was answered during our meeting, but is there a market for the compressor, that 10-year market? Are you able to get it out and then resell it, or potentially resell it?
Adam? That's an Adam question.
Potentially, but most people are buying new, and they're not separating compressors from things.
Okay, all right, thank you. And then for the grout and the tile, in terms of, it's one of those things that you have to retreat or something like that. Is there some issue with the tile, the grout between the tile over time, and how often would you have to?
No, the tile would not be on the floor.
It's on the wall, but even tile on a wall
Okay.
needs to be cleaned
Right,
and
yeah.
whatever. How long would that coat, because you have to put a coating on it in order to have that same barrier that you're getting when you put the tile in. So is there an issue with that over time, or how often does that need to be addressed, or is that even an issue?
We generally, for an application like this, would do an epoxy grout.
Okay.
So it's a little more durable. There's not the need to coat it afterwards.
Okay.
So less of a concern.
Okay, thanks. That's it.
Mr. Kaminsky?
Real quick, Mike, there was talk of, hey, we have an old system
new system? Can we sell the old system? One thing I'd like to ask is, do we know what the refrigerant is? Because as time goes on forward, the refrigeration has changed to where the older stuff you don't want to touch or handle and you can't get support. Do we know what the refrigerant on the old one was? Because we can't touch it, might as well just scrap it.
Do you know specifically, because we think it's old?
Yeah, I think it's 404A. It's still available on the market. It is being phased out. The new system would have, would bring on the ability to.
Higher pressure coil for the condenser coils.
Correct. To change out the refrigerant on the existing unit wouldn't really make sense, particularly at the life that it's at today.
Great, perfect.
Seeing no further comments or questions, Pete, you got a report for us today?
I do. Thank you. And I appreciate everyone allowing me to participate virtually, as my dad's 85th birthday is this week, and it's good to be down here with him. I also want to acknowledge Derek Moorfield. I appreciate Derek being present today, and Derek will be here Tuesday night if there are some additional questions on the Marengo loan. I wanted to note that I think we have kind of tentatively set up June 12th as our next new county board member orientation check-in, if you will. Certainly all the county board members will be invited to sit in on that, but it's focused on our new county board members. I wanted to let you know that if you've not seen already, Tom Anarella sent an email out a couple of hours ago to all the county board members. Medicare is kind of doing a new audit of boards that supervise long-term care facilities, and we're interpreting that to mean the county board. So Tom has asked you for some of your information, and please be careful and not reply all. Just reply directly to Tom and or myself if you have any additional questions there. I think that was all I had. I hope everyone's enjoying your new county board chairs, and we're pleased to have those in place, and I hope they last as long as the old ones did. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, and I would just like to stress one more time how important it is to get your statement of economic interest in today. There have been situations in the past with other boards and commissions where people were removed from their position for not filing in a timely manner. You're here today, clerk's office downstairs. If you don't have a computer, go down and do it today. Thanks. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Scala, second by Ms. Altoff. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Against?
Aye.
Have a great day.